Good evening and welcome. This is a public hearing of the Zoning Board of Appeals of the City of Evanston. The zoning ordinance directs this body to hear applications for major variations, special uses, and appeals from decisions of the zoning administrator. Depending on the type of matter, this board will either make a final determination or send its recommendation to City Council. Would you please call the roll?
Matt Rogers,
Present.
Scott Gingold,
Here.
Mary Beth Burns,
Here.
Beth McLennan, Myrna Aravallo,
Here.
Violetta Cullen,
Present.
Andrew Gallimore.
With 6 members present, we do have a quorum. Also present tonight are zoning planner Melissa Klotz, planning and zoning administrator Lori Pearson, and assistant city attorney Mario Tretto. This is a formal meeting and there are rules that govern our proceedings. Most importantly, only one person speaks at a time so that all testimony may be accurately recorded. Anyone who wishes to address the board regarding any matter on the agenda will have the opportunity to do so at the appropriate time. Our procedure is to hear from staff on the documents on file and then receive testimony and other evidence from the applicant or appellant. Next, persons who wish to make a statement regarding the matter may do so at that time. Any person with a legal interest in property located within 500 feet of the subject property may present evidence, reasonably question witnesses, or seek a continuance of the hearing. When all supporting and opposing testimony and statements have been heard, the applicant or appellant will be given the opportunity for rebuttal or a closing statement. Then the board will close the record and begin deliberations. All testimony will be under oath. Although we do not apply the strict rules of evidence, please limit your testimony or statement to your personal knowledge. When you address the board, please state your name and address and sign in on the provided sheet. We are audio and video recorded. Please make sure that you are at a microphone when asking questions or making statements so that you may be properly recorded. All proceedings are subject to broadcast at a later date. Any matter not concluded at tonight's hearing will be continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting. I will note for the record that Member Gallimore has joined us as well, so we have 7 people present this evening. We do have a full agenda this evening with 4 items on the agenda. The first one is 1111 Noyes Street. Is the applicant present? 2409 Crawford Avenue, 915 Foster, and 2308 Main. So everyone is here. The first matter on the agenda is the approval of our meeting minutes for January 6, 2015. Are there any edits or corrections that need to be made?
Yes. On page 4, I believe that I noted the hardship. Sounds like it's specific to the owner rather than created by the owner.
I would also note that in the approval of the minutes from our December 16th meeting, we had a 5-0 vote with 1 member abstaining, but we had 7 members present. So somebody's vote was not recorded
Good counting.
on that. So I'll leave that to staff to figure out exactly what the missing vote was. Are there any other edits or corrections to the minutes? If not, is there a motion for approval?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from
January 6th.
Tuesday, January 6, 2015.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
With that, the minutes are approved. The first matter on the agenda this evening, the first case, is 1111 Noyes Street, and I would ask that that please be read into the record.
Andrew Venamore, zoning specialist, applies for major zoning relief to construct a 1.5-car detached garage. The applicant requests 32.8% building lot coverage where a maximum 30% is allowed, zoning code section 6827. A 0.5-foot east interior side yard setback where 3 feet is required, zoning code section 6828C4, and a 1-foot west interior side yard setback where 3 feet is required, zoning code section 6828C4. The Zoning Board of Appeals is the determining body for this case. Documents included as part of the record include variance application submitted December 10th, 2014, standards form, zoning analysis, plat of survey dated December 5th, 2014, site plan, elevations, image of property, aerial view of property, zoning map of property, and Dapper draft meeting minutes of January 14th, 2015.
Thank you. At this point, if I could have anybody who may be speaking to us in the matter for 1111 Noyes Street be sworn by raising their right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings? Thank you. And if you would please come forward and state your name for the record.
My name is Andrew Venamore, Venamore.
Thank you, Mr. Venamore. And if you'd please tell us about your proposal.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. So the case before you this evening is to replace an existing parking pad that's located on this property. It's been there for some time. It's very irregularly shaped. The idea is for this owner, who's been living in the home for a little over 10 years now, and has added to their family in that period of time, to provide some covered parking for their vehicle as opposed to what they have now, which, as I just mentioned, is the open parking pad. So the structure, the lot, as you can see, is very irregularly shaped. It's about a third the size of a standard R1 zoning district lot at about 2,500 square feet. And as you can see from the site plan, we've tried to locate a structure that will satisfy the very minimal depth requirements of, for parking a vehicle, and is also minimally sized in width, and has been identified as a 1.5 car structure. And the reason is to allow a little bit of storage inside that structure. If you had a chance to go past the lot, you may have noticed that there is some kind of outdoor storage sheds that are located on the parking pad at the moment. The idea is to put them inside, plus some of the bikes and the other items that the growing family has created in the last 10 years to try and get them out of the house. What you may have also noticed had you driven past is the size of the house. On the lot, it's pretty minimally sized. And so there is just a little bit of a need, not only just to get that vehicle under cover, but also to get some outdoor furniture, bikes, as I mentioned, some lawn equipment inside as well. So the proposed structure has been minimally sized to accommodate that irregularly shaped lot, and its design as a 1.5 car garage is trying to reflect the narrowness as the lot goes to the north. The structure will be located behind the existing residence, basically will be covered from the street by the house. As staff mentioned, the variations this evening, in order to permit this rather small size structure in that rear yard, essentially been driven by the grade differential on your drawings and on that plat shown on the screen. You'll see just to the south of the structure, it's called out as a concrete wall. There is a somewhere between 20 and 24 inch grade differential between where the concrete slab sits now and the back of the lot. If I could just present, Chair, some photos.
All right. I've gotten, are these all the same? There's just multiple
one
copies?
to spread around.
Okay.
Yes.
So I am going to mark these as applicant Exhibit A. It's a series of 4 photographs on a single 8.5 by 11 page, and just a couple of points. Were these pictures taken by you?
They were.
And when were they taken, approximately?
December.
And do they accurately reflect the condition of the property at that time?
They do indeed.
And has anything changed on the property since then?
Nothing.
Thank you.
So as you can see from the photos, the ones towards the bottom, the 2 towards the bottom, you'll see I took a photo back towards the garbage bins and those storage sheds, and you can see how they are much lower than where the fence is located, elevated, like I mentioned, about 2 foot above that existing grade. So Obviously, there wasn't really much of an opportunity to slide the garage back towards the house as much as we probably would have liked in order to either eliminate, I think, or probably just lessen the extent of the variations for those setbacks that we are requesting. But that's pretty much a topographical impossibility. So the structure is going to be located where that parking pad is right now. In addition to that, in order to get the structure in on that east side, you'll see the garage directly, the structure that's shown on the top two photos. Actually, you can see it on all four photos. It's the white structure. That's the garage for the home that fronts onto Ridge Avenue 2230. In order to make it, and we've had conversations with this particular neighbor, in order to preserve his both his white fence you can just see in front of the garage and obviously his earth around the fence, we will be providing a retaining wall in there in order to make sure his property is maintained. That's necessary simply because the garage gets very close to that property line on its most easterly elevation. So we are providing, or going to be providing, a retaining wall in there to preserve his property. So as staff mentioned, the two variations for setbacks, one's on the east adjacent to that garage, one's on the west adjacent to the alley. Even with all that, I can only squeeze in a 19-foot deep structure, which is obviously pretty minimal, but we needed to keep it at even a reasonable minimal size to make it practical. So those two variations plus the lot coverage, we are adding 304 square feet, so we are going to be over the lot coverage just minimally, around about 4%. But again, I think that's a pretty minimal request based on the fact that the lot is very small to begin with, and we aren't really making a very large structure either. So our hardships, as I've somewhat touched on, the grade differential is a big one here because there's very little other opportunity for the garages to be located other than where this existing parking pad is. Hence, I think the reason the parking pad was probably put in there in that location in the first place. So based on that 2-foot difference in grade, this really is about the only location for the structure. And what's driving the other requests, I think, is not only that grade differential, but the fact that the lot does narrow pretty significantly as it goes towards the rear. So it's made it very challenging to get something in, even a structure that's 16 by 19, it's made it very difficult to get it in without requesting these reliefs. So we hope the board feels the same way and be happy to answer any questions at this point.
Just a couple points of clarification. So in looking at the DAPR meetings, it's planned to use a material for siding or aluminum or vinyl siding to match the house.
Indeed.
So it'll feel like it fits in with the property there. And from the drawing and from the pictures I've seen, it doesn't appear that this comes any further forward than the garage that sits at 2230 Ridge.
Further forward.
Further toward Noyes Street, so that's south. So it appears that most of that will sit behind that structure.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay. Are there other questions from members of the board?
I have a question. So on the plat,
Yes.
there's stone in the center of the backyard. Is that some sort of patio?
Correct. It's there's a
And that was included in your impervious surface calcs?
correct.
And then on your plan, although it's on your site plan, it's not on your plan. There's no dimension on the plan. So I would just like to add that
Dimension on which?
on the floor plan. Sorry, the 19-foot depth.
Oh yeah.
That's just missing. So I would just like that to be
Yes.
part of the record, that actually gets
And the 1-foot apron.
noted. Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
Have you considered, or can you explain how you expect the new structure to affect the drainage on the property?
That question came up in the DAPR meeting. Obviously, there's a little bit more coverage than what exists now on that concrete pad. So the roof is a gable end, so it's going to shed its runoff on the south side directly onto that elevated topography, and it's grass there, outside the existing retaining wall that's there. So it's going to shed onto the existing grass on the property and be maintained there. As far as the north side is concerned, that specific issue came up at DAPA, and they have requested that we locate on the drip edge, the line of the edge of the overhang, locate stones just at the base of that in order to give the water the best opportunity to permeate into the earth before coming out into the alley. So the sewer department was more concerned about that than the engineering was. So that's the solution that we came up with, was for that gravel to be placed there, so it helps with the drainage situation.
So at this point, that is now a part of the plan?
It hasn't been placed in here in what you received because it wasn't adjusted, but it came up in DAPA, so zoning won't approve it until I've shown that. Probably on that site plan that'll have, we'll bubble it and identify where the gravel is to go.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Sorry, one more question. Your half-foot setback from the east side, where
Yes.
you're going to put the new retaining wall?
Yes.
What kind of new retaining wall are you putting in half a foot?
So it's going to be probably a 4-inch wide wall, and it's obviously going to reduce that down.
A
that
concrete?
proximity.
Are you thinking it's concrete or it's
Either that or
timbers?
railway ties. I think we've had our concrete guy look at it and start figuring it out, so I'm not 100% sure yet if it will be railroad ties or a concrete wall. The other piece I'd like to add to that, Mary Beth, is that adjacent to where the existing retaining wall sits right now, in order to give some reasonable access to that rather small area,
Right.
that we're going to build a set of
steps
stairs.
down.
Yeah, down to get in that. And that was one of the concerns from the neighbour to the east as well. You saw his white fence on the photos. He wants to make sure that he can get in and paint that at some
Maintenance, sure.
point. So the idea is to give him access via that set of stairs as well.
So the area you're talking about is the small triangle there to the east of the
Of the new garage, yeah.
new garage.
Yes, basically just directly up there, that triangle where the dimension string stops.
Okay. Are there additional questions? If not, I will ask, is there anyone else who wanted to speak to us on this matter? Seeing no one, Mr. Venamore, if you would like to say anything in summation?
That is it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. With that, we'll close the record and go into deliberation on this particular case. I'll start by just saying that obviously this is a very odd-shaped lot. Whether it is substandard or not, just the size of it in and of itself creates an issue. I think we are doing the minimum necessary here. We're not trying to squeeze a 2-car garage in or anything like that. But those are my thoughts. Are there any additional thoughts before we go through the standards?
I'm pretty much agreed with you on that.
So with that, we have 7 standards that we must find are met in order to approve any variation request. The first of which is the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties. Obviously, there have been discussions with the neighbors to the east who will be the most impacted by this, and it sounds like arrangements have been made to address any concerns that they may have. But I don't believe that anything we're doing here in this proposal should have a major impact on any of the adjoining properties. So that standard is met. Number 2, the requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. Obviously, one of the things that we do look at, and we get quite a few requests on, is trying to put garages onto properties. The fact that we are basically building a garage on top of what is an existing concrete pad, expanding it ever so slightly. But it will continue to allow people to park off the street as well as to store personal property. I think that standard number 2 is met as well. Number 3, the alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to the property. We have heard testimony, and obviously this is a substandard lot. And as I mentioned, because of the fact that it has a weird angle cut out of it as well, I think that if it were a squared off lot, it would be a lot easier to fit a garage in here with probably very few requests for side yard and rear yard sort of setbacks, which is what we're being asked for here. So I believe standard number 3 is met. Number 4, the property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were to be carried out. Obviously, having a secure place to put one's car and personal property such as grills, bicycles, lawn care equipment, things like that, is not something that most people are expected to do without. They're expected to be able to secure those things on their property. And because of the fact that this is such an odd-shaped lot, obviously it creates very little space for them to do so. So I believe that standard number 4, that a hardship has been shown. Number 5, the purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income from the property. There's nothing that's led this board to believe that any additional income will be generated off the property. It's not installing a garage so that one can rent it out or anything like that. It will be for the personal use of the owners of the property, so that standard is met. Number 6, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. It sounds like the current owners, if I remember correctly, have been in the home for about 10 years. And the fact is that this is probably the condition that the property has been in for a while. I also will mention, just for the record as well, one of the things I forgot to mention was the gradation difference from the front to the rear of the property, which also helps make it a unique property. And again, is not something that's been created by these particular owners. So standard number 6 is met. And number 7, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulation among the feasible options identified before the Zoning Board of Appeals. Again, we're looking at putting in a 1.5 car garage instead of a 2-car garage. It fits in the space. We're not really going above and beyond what would be expected for people to have. It's a modest garage. And so I believe that standard number 7 has also been met. Is everyone in agreement with my findings?
Yep.
Yes.
With that, I will
Yes.
ask if there is a motion for approval of 1111 Noyes Street. Anyone?
I'll make the motion. You're right. I move in the matter ZBA 14 ZMJV-0153 with regard to the property at 1111 Noyes Street, that we approve the variation requested, subject to the condition that the property be developed in accordance with the documents and testimony provided.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval of 1111 Noyes Street, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? With 7 votes in favor and none against, the motion carries and the project is approved, and you can work with staff on what the next steps will be for you. Thank you. With that, we will move on to our second case of the evening, which is 2409 Crawford Avenue, and I would ask that that please be read into the record.
Rasma Bakari, property owner, applies for major zoning relief to construct a 1-car attached carport. The applicant requests a 2-foot south interior side yard setback where 5 feet is required. Zoning Code Section 6837A3. The Zoning Board of Appeals is the determining body for this case. Documents included as part of the record include variance application submitted December 15th, 2014, standards form, zoning analysis, plat of survey dated October 4th, 1999, site plan, elevations, letters of support, image of property, aerial view of property, zoning map of property, and Dapper meeting minutes of January 7th, 2015.
Thank you. At this point, if I could have anyone who may be speaking to us in the matter of 2409 Crawford Avenues be sworn by raising your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings? Thank you. And if you would please come forward and state your name for the record and your address.
Rosma Bukhari, 2409 Crawford, Evanston, Illinois.
Thank you. I'm going to ask that you pull the microphone down just so we can make sure that we're picking you up.
Okay.
If you would please tell us about your project.
This is a one carport just next to the kitchen door so that, we can use it because my husband is a handicap and it's so hard. I'm also a senior citizen to clean the car and then take it out. The snow days are really horrible. And there is no car garage options.
And currently, you already have a curb cut and a parking pad that runs up beside the house, is that correct?
Correct.
And are you adding any additional concrete to that drive area, or are you just covering what is already there?
Just covering what's already there.
Okay. And you explored the option of having a garage in the back, but the determination was made that,
There is no option, yeah.
okay.
It is far behind, and there is no place, yeah.
All right. Does anyone have any questions?
No.
I mean, this is very similar to the case we just heard, in my opinion, so.
I would concur.
So with that, I will just ask if there's anything you would like to say in summation to us before we begin deliberation.
I just request that it is through, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, thank you.
With that, we will.
All right, I just want to be
Sure.
clear. I take that back. So I thought you were talking about a different project. So I fully understand that I will be in the minority in this, but I see viable options for a garage in the back in a conforming location, and I feel that the variance is in this case, specific to the owner as well.
All right. You can have a seat.
What do you mean by specific to the owner?
I'm going to ask, before we begin this, are there any more questions for the applicant?
Well, actually, I'd like to know what she means before I
Okay.
decide whether I have
All
any
right.
questions.
What I mean? Right. So the reason they're asking for the carport is specifically because the owner is handicapped and has difficulty breathing and would have difficulty walking from a garage in a conforming location to the back of the house. So again, if this owner didn't have difficulty breathing and didn't have difficulty walking, would this be a condition where a carport should be granted? In my opinion, it shouldn't be. And that's my opinion only.
I do, but my questions don't have anything to do with that point or interpretation. Can you describe what would the roof of the carport look like? Would it be flat on top, or would it angle down?
Angle down.
Okay, so let me ask you this: have you what type of property is adjacent to where the carport is, and have you thought about whether or not you're going to cause water or snow runoff down onto the neighbor property?
No, because there is, he will explain it better, I think. Because the next property is like the other side.
I'm going to ask you to please come up just so we can pick you up on the microphone.
Yeah, I can't explain.
And if you would state your name, please.
My name is Jan Kaminsky.
Thank you.
The roof will be slanted down even with the existing one, and there's going to be oversized gutters set on the side with the downspout drain toward the back.
So it will be, you'll be catching any runoff into an oversized gutter, is that correct?
That's
That will sit
correct.
on the edge of the carport?
That's correct. And on the.
And where
end of
will the
on-
gutter drain? Sorry, where's the gutter going to drain?
It's going to be on the back toward the backyard. It's going to be on the east side.
Is that going to be a French drain of some kind, or what's?
It's going to be oversized downspout with the extension. So it's going to be.
That's just
runoff
going to
toward-
end at the end of the garage?
It's going to be ended toward the backyard.
So just like on the house, the gutter's going to come down and it's just going to dump all the water in the backyard.
Although it's going to be extended, the downspout's going to be extended.
Sure, it'll be extended 5 feet like you would from the house, but in general, all the water's going to dump in the backyard.
But very close to the property line next door.
Well, they have the option of being able to you don't have to have the downspout run straight. You can kick it back in towards the property so that it's not dumping right at the property line, because technically you can't dump water within 5 feet of the property line.
Technically, you can't put the carport where you're asking.
Well, but
That's my
All
concern.
true. All
Won't
Yeah.
be any problem to extend the downspout additional 3 feet toward the left, away from the neighbor property.
That would satisfy my concern.
All right. So I'll ask once again, before we begin deliberation, are there any further questions for the applicant? Because if not, I will let them sit down while we begin our discussion. Thank you. I think you can sit down. With that, we will close the record and begin our deliberation on 2409 Crawford Avenue. I will state that I have some of the same concerns Mary Beth has as we had at our last meeting, obviously discussing making variations specific to owner as opposed to property. The one thing that I see as somewhat different here is the fact that we have an existing drive coming in as opposed to creating a curb cut onto a major street and creating additional parking in the front yard. This is more in a side yard. It's where they're parking now. What it's a request for basically is to create a covered parking space as opposed to creating a parking space, which is where I see this as being a different case than the previous one.
I agree, and I think you can make an argument for this being minimum change necessary, because for the owner to put a garage in the back is going to require getting rid of the curb cut, the driveway, and or extending the driveway all the way back and keeping the curb cut, which is undesirable. And yeah, I agree.
I would just like to respond to that about the minimum change necessary. So the concept of a minimum change necessary is really about the number of variances you're asking for. So theoretically, with this piece of property, they could build a garage in a compliant location with access from the alley, and it would be completely compliant. There would be no need for a front apron, or a side drive.
Then they would have to remove at their expense all of what's up front right now.
Yes. Financial isn't,
That's why we're the zoning board of appeals and not the zoning board.
absolutely. Absolutely.
It sounds like there will be some discrepancy on the standards as we move through them. As I mentioned before, we have the exact same standards to go through for this case that we went through for the last case. I will ask people if they are not in agreement with my statement to please chime in and let us know your thoughts. The first standard is the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties. We have had some discussion about drainage issues, but I think that we can address those through a condition if necessary in order to make sure that water is retained on the subject property. We also have received letters of support from the neighbors on both sides. And so I've heard nothing or not seen anything that would lead me to believe that there would be a substantial adverse impact on adjoining property. So I believe standard number 1 has been met. Number 2, the requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. Obviously, one of the things we try to do is make homes habitable and allow them to come up to what is expected of a home in this day and age. And obviously, off-street parking is one of those things. It sounds like this property already has that. The question is whether or not that should be allowed to be covered. I believe that it should be, and there's nothing in the zoning ordinance, in my opinion, that says that it can't be. So I believe standard number 2 is also met. Number 3, the alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to the property. I would make the argument that because of the existing curb cut and existing driveway that leads to nowhere, this is something that is currently existing and is not being created, that in this particular case, it is peculiar to this particular property to have this space that kind of dead ends and does not allow for covered parking. So I believe standard number 3 is met.
I disagree. I think that the hardship is peculiar to the owner and not necessarily the property.
I shockingly agree with Mary Beth. I disagree with the chair.
Okay. Number 4, the property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were to be carried out. This is one where there's going to be a little bit of discussion probably. The hardship that is being sought to be corrected here is to have a space that is covered parking. We have 2 options. Basically, one is to build a garage, remove a curb cut and existing parking pad, or extend that into the back into a garage, which, if I'm correct, would still have to have an entrance off of the alley.
Because the driveway is existing, it could do either or.
Okay. So it could go either way. But I view that as being a hardship and or practical difficulty as opposed to an inconvenience for this particular property owner and for this particular property. So I feel that number 4 has been met. Number 5, the purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income from the property. As I mentioned in the last case, there's nothing that would lead us to believe they're trying to rent this parking space or in any way use it other than for their own personal use, so that standard has been met. Number 6, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. This appears to be a condition that is existing and probably has existed for some time, to have this parking in its current state and, again, not to have it covered. So I believe standard number 6 has been met. And standard number 7, where we will have disagreement, is the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulation among the feasible options identified before the zoning board. As I mentioned before, I think that whereas I can see the request of having a garage in the back as being the least deviation in terms of not needing a variance from us, quite often we are asked from time to time to look at pre-existing conditions that are non-conforming and how can we make the best use of them. And I believe that in this particular case, the carport that has been requested is the least deviation from what we would be able to do, although I know there will be disagreement.
For the record, I disagree because I think that a covered enclosed garage can be built in a fully compliant location.
So with that, and there being a couple points of disagreement, I will ask if there is a motion for 2409 Crawford, and if anybody has any conditions.
I have two conditions that I'd love you guys to consider. One, which is that the downspout be extended at least a minimum of 5 feet from the property line. And the second, that this can never be enclosed to create habitable space.
All right.
I'm down with both of those.
Because you know that's the real basis for all my objections.
Your objection to everything
know
is
that.
based on the fact that somebody made it close.
We know that.
All right, noting those two conditions and whether or not the board feels comfortable with those, I feel comfortable with those conditions being included in any final determination. But I will ask if there is anyone who would like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion unless someone new at making motion wants to give it a go. It's fun. Okay. I move in the case of ZBA 14ZMJV-0158, 2409 Crawford Avenue, that we grant major zoning relief to construct a one-car attached carport with the following three conditions: that the downspout for the carport will extend at least 5 feet into the backyard from its original
From the property line.
from the property line. Second, that the carport, as built, will never be enclosed to become habitable space. And third, that the project proceed in major compliance with all the documents and testimony provided here this evening.
So it has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded in the matter of 2409 Crawford Avenue that we approve the requested variation with the conditions of a downspout off the carport extend at least 5 feet from the property line onto this property, and that this particular structure cannot be enclosed at any future date. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
I will note that with 5 in favor and 2 opposed, the motion does carry and the project is approved, and that you can work with staff on what the next steps will be for getting your project completed. Thank you. Our third case for this evening is 915 Foster Street, and I will ask that that please be read into the record.
Catherine Ebert, lessee, applies for a special use permit for a commercial indoor recreation facility, Foster Dance Studio, at 915 Foster Street. The applicant proposes to expand the existing use into the adjacent vacant space. 915 Foster Street is located in the B1 Business District, which requires a special use permit for a commercial indoor recreation facility to operate, zoning code section 6923. The Zoning Board of Appeals makes a recommendation to City Council, the determining body for this case. Documents included as part of the record include special use application submitted December 17th, 2014, standards form, plat of survey, site plan, description of business, image of property, aerial view of property, zoning map of property, and Dapper draft meeting minutes of January 14th, 2015.
Thank you. At this point, if I could have anybody who may be speaking to us on the matter for 915 Foster Street be sworn by raising your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings? Thank you. And if you would please come up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
I'm Healy Rice. I'm the architect for the project, 934 Elmwood Avenue in Wilmette, and this is Catherine Ebert, who is the tenant.
Do you need my home address or no?
No,
okay.
That's fine.
As long as it's not the same as the studio.
If you would please tell us about your proposal.
Sure. We're looking at expanding into a vacant space that currently is behind their existing studio. They have been in that in that location for approximately 3 years, and this space has been used on and off by the building's owner in sort of short-term leases, and they have made an offer to Foster to be able to take over that space. Catherine will tell you a little bit about their operation.
So we currently have 2 studios in our dance studio, and if we can expand to this back contiguous space, we would add a 3rd studio. We've been in operation for about 3 years, and our classes are getting bigger to the point where the kids are needing a little bit more room to maneuver. So we'd like to have an extra studio for that, as well as to be able to do more sophisticated choreography for our shows. Right now, it's very tight in there. We have a show coming up this weekend, and we all had to practice in this one studio, and it was very hard to do it. So this would give more space for the kids and adults to, move across the floor. We have classes in the morning for adults, and we have classes in the afternoon for kids, probably ages, 4 on up through high school. And those hours would not change. We're just looking to do the same thing, just adding a studio.
I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So on the existing floor plans and the proposed floor plans, in the existing floor plans, what space do you currently have? Do you just have the front room, or do you have the front room and a warehouse area, or how is it divided?
This was a sort of a mock-up for leasing the space. The warehouse and the office spaces are the existing Foster Dance at this point. And then the back where it says receiving and warehouse would be the expansion space.
Okay. So that's where you're planning on adding a waiting room and the new studio space at the, I don't know what direction I'm looking, is it north?
North end.
Okay. And it looks like you also then are planning on expanding sort of the reception, dressing areas, that sort of stuff.
Those were done when they first moved in.
Okay, so that already currently exists. So literally you are just bringing in a waiting area and a studio space to the rear.
Is the only use of the space as a dance studio?
Yeah.
So you're-
We'll have some storage for our dance studio stuff, costumes and things like that, but yeah.
But you don't do performances there?
No.
You do that elsewhere?
We have we have parent-teacher, observations kind of thing. Or
Sure.
like at the end, in the summer, we do summer intensives, where at the end of each week, the parents will come in and watch what the kids have done. They sit on, folding stools smaller than those. So it's,
Right, but nothing you're selling tickets
No.
to or
No.
any of that sort of thing? Can you explain to me the purpose, what's going on with the site plan, where you're giving me the exterior site plan for parking? Talk to me about that drawing.
There, I don't know how long ago, Domino's went in there. There are, the 2 adjacent buildings share that parking lot, and there are 6 spaces right now, 2 that are Domino's, 2 that are Foster, and 2 that are this extra space. So Foster will take over the other 2 parking spaces.
Okay.
That are back there, which will be used primarily for staff.
Okay, so you guys have 4 spaces then?
we have 2 right now, but
You
would
will have 4?
yes.
Okay. And so right now, where does your staff park?
I park on the street. The other 2 owners live a block and a half away, so they just walk over. So really, we don't use the parking that much. We have 2 adult clients that come during the day that drive all the way from Libertyville, and they stay for back-to-back classes, so it's longer than the 2-hour street parking, so we let them use that.
Okay.
And that's about it, really.
And then the lot across the street is available after a certain time?
After 4 and on the weekends, which is really the bulk of when we do have our classes, that lot is free.
Okay. The other thing I remember reading somewhere was that you didn't think that by adding another studio, you would actually get that many more students.
I don't think so. I mean, first of all, that's not our primary goal, but I estimated that if we get even as much as 10%, I'll be surprised. It's not, we've grown pretty rapidly, and I don't think we're going to have a big jump. I mean, it's really more for our company kids who are already enrolled to give them more space. It'd be great if it did go up more than 10%, but I'm not anticipating that.
Do the bulk of the kids who come now, are they from the same families and they're carpooling? So you're getting 2 and 3 kids in a
there
car?
are definitely carpools going on. Yeah, definitely. with the moms dropping off. Sometimes they don't come in,
Right.
but for little kids they do, and that's less carpooling, obviously. And we actually have a fair amount of people who, on Saturday mornings, walk, because they're just neighborhood kids and parents.
Have you had any complaints from the neighborhood about, drop-offs and that sort of stuff?
We have not.
Melissa, have you?
Yeah, sorry.
I've heard that nobody's ever said anything to me about
The
it.
zoning office has no complaints.
I would always hope they'd talk to the business owner first, but, I know that doesn't always happen. People aren't always adult.
It seems like a very transient neighborhood. It's right there by the train, and then there's always a lot of people moving back and
Lots of
forth.
public
Yeah.
transportation that's accessible.
Yeah.
Additional questions?
Are most of your classes after that 4 o'clock time when there's parking across the street?
Yeah, most of them are 4 o'clock and after. 4 o'clock to about 9:30. That's the bulk of our business, because that's when the kids are done with school.
And have we had any issues? We've put a number of things in here, and we're using that parking lot. Are we creating any issues
There are.
with the university, or is that fully public, 100%, we don't have any issue, we don't have to ask?
After 4.
After 4, we just kind of say, go at it, and the university is fine with that.
Isn't that just in lieu of property tax?
Lori Pearson, Planning and Zoning Administrator. As far as we know, I mean, have we asked them? No. I know that other applicants have reached out to them and had that conversation. So I believe that is the understanding for everyone in the neighborhood, yes.
I'm fine. Like I said, I just wanted to make sure we were not going to create a problem by having a number of people who are counting on parking and have the university come back and say, hey, we made a couple arrangements, not for everyone, sort of thing. And if anyone from Northwestern is listening or watching, I'm not suggesting that you do that. Additional questions for the applicant?
Oh, yeah. Are you making any changes to the front of the building? Are you doing anything to the outside? Yeah.
No.
Nothing to the
Oh,
outside?
no, I mean, the inside we will, obviously it's a warehouse now, but yeah.
To the,
nothing-
no,
nothing-
to the Foster Street front.
No.
Any further questions? With that, I will ask if you have anything you'd like to say in summation.
I think you have it all, so thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, we will close the record and begin our deliberation. In this particular case, since this is a special use, we will be making a recommendation to City Council instead of being the determining body. I think that in this particular case, we have a business which has kind of outgrown the space that it has. It's nice to see that they are able to expand and stay in the same building, make use of the improvements that they have made on that building, and have the opportunity to grow to meet their needs and potentially even expand beyond their needs at that particular time. From the line of questioning, I'm assuming there's not a lot of topics for discussion, so we will go through the standards. We do have a different set of standards for special uses. There are 9 of them. The first one is that it is one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. This is listed as a commercial indoor recreation facility, and we find it existing in a B1 district, and also would note that it currently exists as is. We're just looking to expand the special use. So that standard is met. Number 2, it is in keeping with the purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive general plan and zoning ordinance as amended from time to time. It is nice to see a business doing so well that it needs to expand, and again, that they have the opportunity to expand and remain in Evanston. One of the things that we are always looking to do is try to accommodate businesses where we can to keep them in the city. And so I believe that standard number 2, it has been met. Number 3, it will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types on the immediate neighborhood. We've heard testimony that we are looking to see a slight expansion, probably in the neighborhood of 10% or less. Obviously, the owner would like it to be more. But the fact that with the addition of approximately an additional 20 students, maybe, I don't see us totally overwhelming this neighborhood with this type of a special use. So I believe standard number 3 has been met. It does not interfere with or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. I would say that it does the opposite by taking warehouse space from one of our B1 districts and being able to convert it into usable space. Definitely would do more to bring the value of that area up. We've seen some other improvements in that neighborhood. So hopefully with the impact of all of those different special uses that have been going in there, the neighborhood should see an increase in their property values. So standard number 4 is met. Number 5, it can be adequately served by public facilities and services. There's nothing here that is really going to be an additional draw on any of our public facilities. We are adding studio space. We're not increasing the draw on any of our hopefully a minimal draw on any sort of facilities that are currently serving the property, and so standard number 5 is met. Number 6, it does not cause undue traffic congestion. We have had a little bit of discussion about that just to make sure that there isn't a problem created by people dropping off or picking up. We obviously have a parking lot across the street that we are able to make use of from time to time. And it also is an area which is easily served by public transportation. So I believe that that standard also has been met. Number 7, it preserves significant historical and architectural resources. To my knowledge, there isn't really any significance to this particular building, and the fact that we will be making only interior changes as opposed to exterior changes should have a minimal impact on the architecture of the property, and therefore standard number 7 is met. Number 8, it preserves significant natural and environmental features. We are not increasing any impervious surfaces. We are not taking green space away. It's an existing building, and it will not be changing its footprint. So I believe standard number 8 has been met. And number 9, it complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances. The fact that this is an existing operation looking to expand, I would have to believe that they are in compliance with all existing regulations, and that there should not be any reason to believe that if there were an additional restriction or an additional regulation because of the expansion, that they would not comply with that. So I believe standard number 9 has also been met. Is everyone in agreement with my findings on standards?
Yep.
Yes.
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 With that, I will ask if there is a motion.
Happy to make a motion.
Thank
Can I
you.
ask a question? Do we need to do hours?
Yes, usually we do hours.
6 to 10?
Yes, that's what we've typically done, I believe, in this B1 district. And for the owner, I will just note those. We give you a wide range of hours. You aren't required to make use of hours. You can choose anything in between those. So although we usually give a very wide envelope, we're not by any means trying to set hours of operation. That is what we usually have done, I believe, in a B1 district, particularly with this type of a business. It appears that 10 o'clock is even kind of on the outside.
Well, they said
because the numbers
9:30.
Right.
So, okay, so in the ZBA matter 14 ZMJV-0157, special use, I move that we recommend approval of a special use permit for a commercial indoor recreation facility at 915 Foster Street with the following conditions: that the plans be, thank you, in substantial compliance, that the building be in substantial compliance with the plans and testimony on record, that the employees utilize off-street parking to the best of their ability, and that the hours of operation are from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we recommend approval of the expansion of Foster Dance Studio at 915 Foster to City Council with the conditions that were stated with hours and employee parking not being permitted on the street. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Votes 7-0. So your project will move forward to City Council with a recommendation for approval, and staff will let you know when you'll appear on Council's agenda. Thank you. And with that, we move to our final case of this evening, which I was hoping was the final case because there would be alcoholic beverages provided, but I've been told that is not the case. So we will hear your case anyway. So the matter of 2308 Main Street, if you would please read that into the record.
Todd Paul, lessee, applies for a special use permit for a wholesale goods establishment for Fuse Spirits at 2308 Main Street. The applicant proposes to expand the existing use into the adjacent vacant space. 2308 Main Street is located in the C1 Commercial District, which requires a special use permit for a wholesale goods establishment to operate. Zoning Code Section 61023. The Zoning Board of Appeals makes a recommendation to City Council, the determining body for this case. Documents included as part of the record include special use application submitted October 10th, 2014, standards form, plat of survey dated December 29th, 2002, site plan, description of business, ordinance 71013, previously approved special use, image of property, aerial view of property, zoning map of property, and Dapper meeting minutes of January 21st, 2015.
Thank you. If I could have anyone who may be speaking to us on this matter be sworn, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings?
I do.
Thank you. And if you would please state your name and address for the record.
I am Todd Paul. My home address is 1017 Sherman Avenue in Evanston.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. And if you would please tell us about your proposal.
We have the adjacent space next to this, and we came before, I guess, in last year. And as part of a contingency of that lease, we negotiated with the landlord. We had first right of refusal on the adjacent space next door to it. At the end of last year, a tenant came in and wanted to lease the space. And so in an effort to keep our options open for future expansion, we exercised our right of first refusal and agreed to lease the space. As part of that, because we're the tenant and we're a wholesale goods permit, we had to extend our special use to the adjacent space.
So the special use was granted for an existing space in this property and
Currently slashed like this.
Right.
This is barrel storage.
And so now the idea is are you taking over the entire building or?
No, the building is actually, there's a CarQuest.
Right, I thought it's a huge building.
It's a huge building. It's like
So
50,000
this is just
square
the
feet.
area though that you had the ability to exercise a right of refusal on.
This is the only vacant space left in the building.
Okay.
And it's just adjacent to the next space.
But for clarity, is your lease all of the address known as 2308 Main, or is it only part of that space? The reason I ask is because you're asking for a special use that runs with the property, and I'm not sure we need to grant or should grant a use for the whole property if you're not using the property.
That would be a question for Melissa. I don't know.
Or for Mario.
Or for somebody else.
For this property, each unit has its own address, so the special use that was granted in 2013 was for 2310. So this special use is for 2308, which is actually just this portion here.
The 2308 written on there is actually incorrect. That's 2310.
Okay,
This is the
That's the
existing.
confusion, maybe.
All right.
So can you just, by what's written on the sheet in front of us, can you identify which sections belong to 2308?
So it is this line right here, that's 2310. All of that from here and the rest of the outline is 2308.
Okay, so can you explain what is meant by subleased space?
Because we don't need this space as our current operations don't require that space, we are going to try to sublease the space to keep the cash burn on this space relatively minimal.
And so is the sublease intended to go to a wholesale goods establishment as well?
It's unclear. It's like probably not. It'll probably go to office or something else, but we don't have a tenant set forth at this point. But these, where you see these lines, those walls are already pre-existing. We're not doing anything to this space, and so it creates a natural break that we don't need. And so the intent is to sublease that space.
But you will be using part of 2308, which is the area marked general storage. Is that correct?
Yes. In dock area, that space is for sure going to be used.
Okay, can you describe how they will be used?
We have a myriad of things that, from everything from pallets to just all the kind of stuff we generally use for marketing. We have heat. We have this tent that'll go there. Just stuff we use at our various locations, primarily pallets or various other things that are in transit, because we don't like sticking them in the alley because scavengers come and take them. So yeah, that's the biggest problem.
Does any bottling occur on site?
It will. The intent is, so where you see that little cutout in there where it says bottling line, I can go walk up there if you can't. That is actually, I believe one of the old uses of this is they use this as a paint booth, because that is a fully enclosed cinder block wall pre-existing in the space. So the intent is that we will do our bottling in that space.
A question for Mario, is it okay to do spirits bottling in a wholesale goods establishment?
I believe it is. Let me just confirm and look at the code.
And if it isn't, is that something council would be able to grant separately?
If it's not okay?
If it's not something that currently is allowed in a wholesale goods structure, I am assuming council has the ability to make it so if.
Oh, yes.
If they so desire.
Mm-hmm. They do, yeah.
I'm only asking because, I'm totally in favor of the continued expansion of this great Evanston business, but I want to make sure we're considering the correct special use that needs to be granted.
Agreed.
From a zoning standpoint, given the area being used, we would consider bottling to be accessory to the principal use.
The bottling line is about the size of that table at best.
While council is looking that up, are there additional questions? I'll go ahead. What is the additional increase in staff that you're looking for here?
Nothing, nor would there ever be. Any possible use that we could create for the space, we're not adding additional staff at that location. We have staff that already function as in what is denoted there as the 2308 space. So those people will,
But there's not plans to bring
No.
10 additional employees
No,
in
no.
or anything like that?
No.
And there are no proposals to change the exterior of the building in any way?
Nope.
Everything will be interior. And then one of the questions that came up, and I don't know, this is probably more a staff question than anything else. During DAPR, there was discussion about fire protection being required. Not that we would be doing that, but I just want to make sure that it's been covered off on if it needs to be.
That was not resolved at the DAPR meeting, but that will be, the interior build-out permit would be contingent upon any of that.
Okay.
and we had I had a fire expert, as that was a topic of conversation. I had a fire expert look at the plans, because the liquor is not over 60 ABV, and because it is less than 120 gallons, we're excluded from every possible FOD code.
Okay.
Chairman Rogers, I have an update.
All right.
Whenever you have a chance. A wholesale goods establishment does cover the bottling of bottling for purposes of selling goods, products, and merchandise to the consumer. So it does fall within the definition of wholesale goods establishment in the VSD code.
Thank you. Are there additional questions from the board? Is there anything you'd like to say in summation, Mr. Paul?
And not unless anyone has any questions.
All right, I don't think we do. So with that, we will close the record and begin our deliberation. Again, I'll go out on a limb and say somewhat that this is not that different in terms of an expanding business taking a little more space in an existing building, similar to what we saw in the last case. Based on the line of questioning, it seems that everyone is in substantial agreement here, but we will go through the standards to make sure that all standards for a special use have been met. Number one, it is one of the specific uses, or one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. We did have a little bit of discussion and point of clarification that indeed if bottling did occur in this space, that a wholesale goods establishment is indeed the proper type of special use for this space. So that standard has been met. Number two, it is in keeping with the purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance is amended from time to time. Again, maintaining our business stock is something that we try to do here in Evanston, especially a unique business such as this, and to have them have the opportunity to continue to grow in Evanston and to expand their space in an existing location, I believe is in keeping with our general plan and zoning ordinance. Number three, it will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types on the immediate neighborhood. Most neighbors probably will not even notice any impact at all, nor will they notice any change. It appears that most of this is being done interior of the building, and we are not bringing additional employees into the space. Or if we do, it'll be at a very bare minimum. And so I believe standard number three is met. Number four, it does not interfere with or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. And looking at where this building is located, it is surrounded by primarily commercial and industrial buildings. It seems like this is the type of place that we would expect to see a wholesale goods establishment. And therefore, I don't believe that there will be any change in the property values other than the fact that we will not have empty storefronts, but we'll be maintaining commercial space. So that standard is met. Number five, it can be adequately served by public facilities and services. Again, it doesn't appear that this particular project will be drawing on our public facilities any. There will be no additional brewing or anything like that occur, or distilling done in this particular case at this property. And so this is really more storage and it appears bottling and then storage of bottled product. So I don't believe that there's any reason to believe that standard number five would not be met. Number six, it does not cause undue traffic congestion. Again, mentioning the fact that there will be minimal, if any, employee change. The fact that this is in the commercial and industrial areas of town, we would expect to see whatever vehicles are coming and going not to change drastically from what has been happening there. And obviously, the fact that a lot of this occurs without there being trucks pulling up onto a major street or anything like that, there is parking and off-street loading areas, so that standard has been met. Number 7, it preserves significant historical and architectural resources. There is no plan to change any of the exterior of the building, so if indeed there is some random architectural significance to this building, we will not be impacting it. So standard number 7 is met. Number 8, it preserves significant natural and environmental features. There will be no change in the footprint of the building, and therefore we will not be changing the green space or in any way affecting the environment around the building, so that standard has been met. And number 9, it complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances. Obviously, with this being a distillery and working with liquor, obviously if there are any regulations that are beyond the purview of this board, this is a business that has been in operation for a while. We have no reason to believe that they would not continue to maintain whatever licensing the city may require from time to time. So I believe that that standard is also met. Is everyone in agreement with my findings on standards?
Yep.
Yes.
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 Well, with that, I will ask if there is a motion in the matter of 2308 Main Street.
Yeah, I'll motion that zoning code, zoning cases 14 ZM JV 0142, 2308 Main Street, that we recommend approval to the City Council for establishment of a wholesale goods establishment.
Is there a second?
A second. Sorry.
It's been moved and seconded that we recommend approval of 2308 Main Street for a wholesale goods establishment special use to City Council. All those in...
Let's just add the conditioned on the development of the property in compliance with the documents and testimony submitted. If
Thank you. That is fine.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries with 7 votes in favor, so you will receive a favorable recommendation to City Council, and staff will let you know when you will appear on their agenda. With that, we have concluded our business of of this evening. Is there any matter for discussion to be brought before the board?
Just to note that we do have a zoning board hearing next Tuesday. We do have 3 agenda items. However, our meeting after that was scheduled for February 17th, is canceled due to a lack of items.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for adjournment. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned until next Tuesday in council chambers.